Hi, and welcome to Bloody Good Reads. It's been a while since I've had an episode. Sorry for the huge delay in episodes, but we are back on the road. Episode 102, I believe, of
Wow.
the podcast. We're coming back to one of my. It's my guilty pleasure. We've been doing a lot more of it recently. We've got some crime fiction on here again today. A little bit different, actually. It's a bit cozy crime, it's been classed as. And if you're in the UK, very kind of lunchtime, crime drama, afternoon crime drama, which we all love over here in the UK. So, welcome to the podcast this week, J.M Hall.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast. What we like to do here on Bloody Good Reads is force authors to pick 3 books they love, because I like to make the challenge for some people. But yeah, welcome to the podcast. We are huge crime fans here. Some of the biggest numbers of our podcast seem to be crime novels. So what I like to ask every guest before we get into kind of your books and how you got into the writing in general is, how did you get into the crime genre?
Accidentally.
Okay.
I never thought I would write crime fiction ever. I had written for the theatre, and I wrote ghost stories, I wrote love stories, but all plays, and I'd written some for the radio. A novel was always one of those things I thought, one day I'd like to have a go, because I hadn't really written any novels since I was a sort of angsty 20-year-old, when I wrote novels about angsty 20-year-olds, which, as you can imagine, were very good. So, it was a story. It was a journey. I never thought I'd write crime fiction. But then my father, my lovely late father, was on a bit of a journey with Alzheimer's after my mother died. And he had been a bank manager, and he had been the rock stable support of my sister's life, my life. He was the one. He used to help me do my tax returns. He was the one we went to who wanted advice on anything money related. Anyway, Dad was ill, and he was obviously a bit more ill than we thought he was, because he suddenly started talking about getting phone calls from the bank. And the long and short of it was, he was rung by one of these people who told him to transfer all his money out of his account. And he did. And the truly shocking thing, aside from the fact someone had, deliberately set out and done this, was the attitude of the bank. You get a flavour of it. I think people will understand a bit when they see the attitude of how the post office have been to their postal workers, the post office managers. Very sort of sheltering behind corporate speak, non-responding to phone calls, non-responding. The attitude was, it's his fault. Very sad, his fault, we don't want to know. Our dad was a bank manager. To us, that was a sign of how ill he was. So, and it was exactly at the same time that the manager of the bank was actually, the bank had to be bailed out because of the financial mismanagement of the manager. So there was this huge injustice in my life, in my sister's life. And I spent a year writing to the bank, the ombudsman, solicitors, MP, Gloria Honeyford's media show, whatever.
Yeah.
And I got absolutely nowhere. And about the same time, I realised how vulnerable Dad was as an elderly person. People would be sort of coming round trying to sell him patios and solar panels, and he was getting prodigious amount of junk mail. Those sort of things that say you have won £30,000. And he was actually believing he had won £30,000. And I realised how vulnerable elderly people were. And I was really sort of naively shocked at this. And my sister said, you should write about this. And I thought, well, I can't see this as a fringe play. And I started writing a novel with this as its background, really just as a way of addressing this huge injustice that had happened. And I had no thoughts of publishing it. I was going to self-publish it and give it to my sister in this wine bar we used to go to on Christmas Eve.
Mm.
And so I wrote this draft of a novel. And at the same time, somebody said, oh, there's this course you can go on and you can pitch your novel and pitch it to an agent at the end. So I did. I spent a wonderful autumn going up to Writer's Block Northeast in Middlesbrough. And they helped me get the novel into shape. And I got an agent. And that was it. We were off. Not something I ever thought of doing, and certainly not writing a crime series.
Mm.
But then once I started it, I found I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, like you've got your core three characters, which you can put these ladies in any kind of situation, really. They're quite they're kind of they're very British in their way as well, which is quite nice.
Well, what they are is they are the distillation of 40 years working in primary schools with immensely gifted, talented, wise, strong women. So so thank you for that.
So what was your kind of reading growing up? What was the kind of stuff you would read when you were younger?
I was looking back on that as a child. I do remember the thrill of going into West Bridgford Library and seeing all the books there. And I would read pretty much everything. But if I had to look back on the things that really made an impact when I was a child, it would be Enid Blyton. Mm-hmm. Just worked my way through. I particularly loved the mystery books, The Mystery of the Burnt Cottage, The Mystery of the Invisible Thief, The Mystery of the Spiteful Letter, which I almost think were the first kind of things that I maybe thought I'd like to emulate. Then I loved and read Arthur Ransom, the Swallows of Amazon's books. Yeah. And, of course, being an absolute Doctor Who fan, no one can see this here, but just showing you my Dalek here. I read all the Doctor Who books when they came out. And then I seemed to go straight from Enid Blyton and Doctor Who onto Agatha Christie. And then when I was probably 16 to 20, I worked my way through all the Agatha Christie books. And I read all sorts of things and different things. But those are the things, looking back, that sort of stick in my mind.
It shows that it obviously comes on with you to kind of what you're writing now as well. You're kind of love of the mystery, and these are kind of very mystery-based kind of stories as well.
I realise they are more, with the Enid Blyton books, of course, the mysteries, there were no murders.
No.
And they were focusing on the mysteries. And I still think of, to this day, there's one called The Mystery of the Invisible Thief. And houses are being broken into by this huge man who's leaving big footprints and handprints everywhere. And I still get that little bit of a chill down my spine because they can hear this noise upstairs. And who is it? I would say those books do have a direct through line to the things I write now.
Okay, cool. So, kind of leading on then, was it teaching you really wanted to get into kind of coming out of school? Was this kind of your route that you were looking to do, or was it more the theatre side? You've done obviously a lot of writing for theatre, or?
Yeah. No. When I was at school, I wasn't one of these people who was sort of like, okay, I'm going to go grape picking in the south of France. Okay, I'm going to go around Europe or whatever. I was quite craven. And the great idea was for me to have a career sort of set up by the time I left university. And I did write, but everyone said, oh, get a job as well, which I actually really see the sense and agree with. But I remember being 7 and being sat in the primary classroom and looking at the paints and the maths equipment and the reading books and there was just something about the environment. And I remember thinking, oh yes, I would like to be in this environment. I would like to be a teacher. So teaching was always a sort of bread and butter, always the backbone, always the thing that I was going to do. And it's only really very recently, since I actually retired from teaching, that I don't say, oh yes, I'm a teacher who writes. I now say I'm a writer who, used to teach.
Cool. I mean, how do you find, obviously, being within teaching, how do you find like the patterns have gone along with kids and reading? Because there's so many more, more books available for kind of younger readers. But do you find that you can still keep a modern kind of audience engaged at that age now, or is it getting a bit harder?
Mm, I think there's a definite impact from smartphones and
Mm,
tablets. And I think, and I don't know whether it's I just find this myself, I think the concentration is a bit less.
no, I agree.
I,
Yeah.
I, I think concentration is less. Having said that, there is a marvelous array of fiction
Hmm.
for younger people. I wonder how the library was full when I was a kid with children's fiction, because there just seems so much now, and there are things that kids absolutely love. They love, like, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The
Hmm.
Hunger Games, and there's so many fantastic different series. Having said that, a bit of a gripe of mine, I really, really think that the way they have to do a reading test in year 6
Mm,
is, I can't think of a better way of putting kids off reading, because
mm,
because they have to come to a text, they have 20 minutes to read it and respond to some very, very difficult questions.
mm,
And so there's a wonderful culture of reading in schools, and yet there's this very draconian reading test. This is
mm,
a personal opinion, I
mm.
hasten to add. It's not something, I don't know how widely shared it is, but that kind of worries me, because children do. When you saw how massively important Harry Potter was and is, and
Mm.
how it just took off and caught fire, and you think how fantastic kids are getting so excited about reading.
I mean, I'm a reading parent. I've be always reading with my daughter,
Yeah.
and the school is very good with that as well. We do a lot of kind of parent readings and stuff like that. But it's always a worry of you get to a certain point and they're just going to go, no, we'd rather do smartphones. It is a worry, but it's again so many great authors, especially in the young adult kind of area and in the younger readers. So
I,
hopefully, yeah,
I do
you'll talk to
see, having seen so many kids over the years, I think the ones who read with their parents, whose parents actually show them how they value reading by reading to them,
them.
I think that gives them a sort of a love. It becomes more than just an activity. It becomes more sort of almost like a spiritual thing. I don't know.
Mm,
Certainly a well-being thing, because your daughter will associate
mm.
reading with you as a time of real closeness
Yeah,
and
it's a
positivity,
happy thing. Yeah.
a happy thing. And
Mm,
I really hope that would then just stay with her, because
mm,
I remember my mother reading to me, and I remember I remember teachers reading to me at school. I remember a teacher reading us The Hobbit, and I loved reading that to my own classes.
mm,
And there was a show, I think you're probably too young to remember it, Mark,
mm.
called Jackanory.
I know Jack and Nora.
And you just have somebody, usually
Mhm.
Judy Dench or Bernard Cribbins, and they
Mm,
just sit in the chair reading the story.
mm.
And it was great. And we just listened to any and everything. So
Yeah,
I think the more we value stories, the more stories are valued.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, something like that for older children would be great because they do that with kind of CBBS. They have the story time read by
Yeah.
celebrities as well, which is more for the parents. But it's a nice experience to see that. It'd be nice to see that with kind of more of
Yeah.
an older audience.
Yes, absolutely. But I think we should see stories as a thing to enjoy and experience, not a
Mm,
thing to sort of plunder for inference and comprehension and
mm.
so forth.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Okay, so before we get into your amazing series, what I
Mhm.
will do is jump into the Bloody Good Reads. So, like I said at the start of the podcast, what we'd like to do is force authors to pick 3 books they love. So, what is your first Bloody Good Read?
Okay, this is you can't see it. I'm holding it up. To Kill a Mockingbird.
Good choice.
This is the edition I bought in 1978 for my O levels. It says Jonathan Hall, 1978, 4H in the front of it. It's a novel I reread almost yearly, and the reason I think I love it and why it's one of those that you think, yeah, I would love to have written that, is the way that Harper Lee evokes a community.
Mm.
And you've got this sort of the gossips, and you've got the men, and you've got the ladies in the shop, and you've got the woman who runs a telephone exchange, and also this mystery at the heart of it of what has happened. Who is this Boo Radley? What did he do? And what actually happened with this court cases going on. And it's just a masterclass in creating a small town. And even though this small town is in Alabama, it could be in Yorkshire, or it could be in Australia, or it just got a real small town feel to it. And yet it's deeply profound.
Brilliant. I don't think we've had it picked. I might have had it picked. It's been 100 episodes. I forget what's been picked, but I don't think it has been picked yet. So that's a good choice.
102 episodes, maybe. I don't know.
You never know.
No.
But you never know on that one. Cool. Brilliant choice.
Yeah.
Like, absolute classic. So go and check that one out. So let's speak about your amazing series. So starting with, is it Spoonful of Murders, the first book?
Yeah.
I can see it on the camera.
Okay, yeah. I've got them rearranged.
If only we did it on video. So tell us a little bit about the series, kind of about the setup of the series, the characters involved, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, there are 3 retired primary school teachers who are sort of slightly like me, retired primary school teachers. And they meet every Thursday in the local garden centre, because it's got good parking and it's away from the tourists. Because this is in the town of Thirsk, where James Herriot was. It's a sort of a bit of a tourist place, is Thirsk. But the garden centre is away from all of that. And in the first novel, they meet their former nursery nurse, and it becomes apparent she's suffering from Alzheimer's, dementia, and she's been frauded out of a large sum of money. And she says, "Oh yes, people said it would be better if I was dead." And then 3 weeks later, she's dead. And they all say, "Oh, she accidentally took too much medication." And these 3 women think, well, hang on, this woman was, even though she's suffering from dementia, she was pin sharp. I mean, she knew exactly how many laminating pouches there were and how many kids there were needing to read and how much, we don't think she would have made a mistake like this. So that's the premise of the first one. And in the second one, their school is an academy. Their former school is an academy, a very successful academy with one of these uber educationalists you get these days, with sort of vast amounts of money and personalized number plates and so forth. And people start getting anonymous letters sent to them within this school saying, nobody likes you. You're just quite forthright language, calling different school teachers out. And the 3 women get involved in finding out what's going on with these anonymous letters. And then in the third novel, which has just come out, it's going back more of a mystery one. There's somebody stranded on a foggy railway station, and she goes out because the train, believe it or not, is cancelled due to a shortage of what do we call it these days? A shortage of train crew. No, unavailability of train crew. And so she goes out, and it's really foggy, and being of a certain age, she needs the loo. And she sees this light, and she sees there's a charity shop, and she goes in. It's a really strange charity shop. It makes her feel very uneasy, with this clock ticking in the middle of it. But when she looks closely, even though the clock's ticking, the hands aren't moving. And then this voice comes out of the darkness saying, "Why did you do it?" At which point she absolutely panics and runs out. But the next day she goes back and the charity shop's gone. It's vanished.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. So those are kind of the outlines of the three, but it's also about the three women. And like me, I'm sort of using them as I begin to navigate my 60s with all the joys that brings, such as, statins and retirement and stuff like that.
Mm.
It's about them getting their head around this different phase in their life. And it's about their friendship. And also that feeling when you're a primary school teacher, I do feel you have a certain amount of superpower when it comes to human behavior because you've kind of seen everything over the years. Every form of human misbehavior there is usually ends up in the primary school playground, parents' WhatsApp group, or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's as much about the three women as it is about the stories.
I think it's good because this ends up being then this ongoing series, which again, cozy crime is what they cast it as, which is very more daytime, lunchtime kind of like.
You see,
Miss Marple, or
okay, yeah. Now, Miss Marple, I'll take. But this phrase, cozy crime. You see, having been on the receiving end of it with Dad, believe you me, it's anything but cozy. And I do find, I love those crime thrillers that have got some serial killer and dismembered bodies turning up all over the place and trouble detectives and police procedure and so on. I know this sounds really weird, but in a way, that's slightly more cozy because there's no part of it that touches my life. Whereas in one of these ones where, the lady's going to a pre-diabetes awareness seminar, it's like, oh, yeah, that would be me, you see. So I don't know. I think by cozy, it means not police. Because I think as soon as you have police involved, you've got certain things that have to happen.
It's a procedural then yeah.
Exactly. You can't ignore the fact that if somebody was found dead, that you would have like forensics, you would have DNA testing and so on.
It's more kind of murder she wrote than kind of.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that because a few years ago, I had my gallbladder removed. Sorry, I'm oversharing here, but the fact was I had 2 weeks off teaching, and it was kind of guilt-free 2 weeks off because there's no way I could have gone into work. And I watched almost every episode of Murder, She Wrote in that time. And I did love the way that this Jessica Fletcher just sort of got into conversations with people and found things out and chatted and gossiped and noticed things. I thought she was great.
Awesome. Cool. So the brand new book is out now. I'm trying to remember the name of it now. That is
Clock Stop Dead.
Clock Stop Dead. So that is out now. By the time this podcast comes out, be about a few weeks. So Waterstones, Amazon, any of the local bookshops, go and check it out now. Let's go to your second choice. So what is your second bloody good read?
My second bloody good read is from 1971, Moomin Valley in November by Tove Jansson. The Moomins, as everyone will know, and of course on one level they are children's books, but I don't think I've ever found such books that have such keen observation of humans, people. And this particular book, Moomin Valley in November, the Moomins have gone. They've gone off somewhere. And you've got these people who come to the valley and they're waiting for them. And there's a sort of a fussy one who's obsessed with housework. And there's a loud, overbearing one that nobody likes very much. And there is a small one who's finds it really difficult connecting with other people. So the observational powers of Tove Jansson, I think, are as adult as anything I've ever read. And she wrote this book very soon after her mother died. And somebody said it's the wisest book about grief that's ever been written. So not a lot happens in this book. It's just these different characters meeting and talking and reflecting and wondering and dreaming, all against the backdrop of this valley gradually closing down for the autumn and the last of the leaves falling and the fog's coming in, and it ends just as the first flakes of snow are falling. And it is a beautiful book. I reread it every year. And I think there's something about reading a children's book. No, I'm not going to say it's an easy read, because children's books, I think, are as every bit as taxing, sophisticated. But there's a purity to it, a simplicity to it. And of course, I know it very, very well. So it is a great comfort, I find, to reread it actually in November. And I love her observation of people is something I try to emulate in my own books.
It's a really nice cover as well. I do like the cover art on that one.
I'll show you. You'll won't be able to see, but I've got here my Puffin Club book plate in it from 1971. And again, this book belongs to Jonathan Hall.
Brilliant. Awesome. So what is next for you? So are you looking to continue the series, or maybe going to branch out to a kind of a new series?
I'm at a bit of a crossroads, because I stopped teaching full time last November. So suddenly, as I said to you earlier, I'm no longer a teacher who writes. I'm a writer who used to teach. And I think, yeah, actually, okay, do I want to carry on writing these books? I mean, part of me thinks yes, but only as long as I can. I've got stories about the three women, Pat, Liz, and Thelma, that I want to tell. So it's not like what's the next crime, but what are the next things I'd want to explore. I have got a fourth one, that the first draft, I'm waiting for the edits on that. So there will be a fourth one coming out next year. But I'm at the time of thinking, right, well, do I go for a fifth one, continue the series? I'd quite like to write something LGBT, well, G. Being of a certain age, it would be more like Heartstopper with defibrillators. Maybe. So that is something you think, well, why not? What's stopping me? And the good thing was, if it wasn't any good, no one would ever know about it. I also write a Radio 4 series starring Julie Hesmondhalgh, the wonderful Julie Hesmondhalgh. And it's about an academy, a secondary school academy. It's called Trust. And I'm just working on the fifth series of that. That's quite an important one, because I'm a bit of an old lefty, and I'm very uncomfortable about the academization system. It feels in many ways like the privatization of education. And even though I know there's many wonderful academy trusts out there with many dedicated professional people, there's still part of me that it doesn't sit right with. So I can. So writing Trust, and I'm also putting in another Radio 4 idea that isn't Trust. I'm maybe doing an adaptation of Treasure Island, and I've also put in a sort of a World War II thriller with werewolves.
Of course.
Of course. Yeah.
You had to have werewolves as World War II.
Well, it's just like something completely different, which is, yeah.
That's good. But no, with the academies, I mean, my daughter is in an academy. They do teach a lot different, and I'm not sure if I like the way, but it's where it's going now, which is sad.
I think they've done, they've done a lot that's very good. I know that there were a lot of problems in the beginning, because it felt like they weren't very well regulated, and there were academies where a lot of money was being creamed off and the schools were really suffering. I mean, I'd like to think that wasn't happening now. There is a great focus on results and academic success. reading and maths and numeracy. And don't get me wrong, it's absolutely important that children are taught those things. But in the school where I worked, we had a big emphasis on drama and music, and every child got the opportunity to learn an instrument. And we had a brass band, and we have a choir, and we have a percussion band. And there's something about children experiencing these things that I think gives them an energy and confidence, which then helps them with the maths, the literacy, and what have you. But anyway. Sorry, I'm going off on a rant here. So
no. That's what we're here for.
okay,
Brilliant. So let's go to it then. Let's go to our final bloody good reads. What is your third or final choice?
well, this was a very difficult one. I could have chosen any 10, 12, 50, 20, but it had to be. It's Agatha Christie, who I think is actually massively underrated. And by underrated, I mean, I don't mean she's not popular, because she's hugely popular, but people say she's the queen of crime. She's actually a gifted novelist, and I would say she owes as much to Chekhov and Jane Austen and Elizabeth Gaskell, as she does to crime fiction. I always find in an Agatha Christie, the kind of the beating heart of the problem is always something that's really authentic or really believable. Because sometimes, you might watch something, you might read something, and when you find out what it was all about, why all of this happened, you might go, oh, right, okay, I don't know about that. But with Agatha Christie, she always sold to me whatever it was she was talking about. And this one is the 13 Problems. And it's Miss Marple's first appearance. They were a series of 6, and then the next year 7 short stories that appeared in a paper or a magazine. But more significantly, it was like the first thing she wrote after her disappearance. And what had happened was she was deeply in love with her first husband, Archie Christie, and he fell out of love with her and in love with somebody else, which was absolute agony. And there was this whole time when it got too much for her and she went away, whether she had memory loss, whether she was just running away, I don't know. And then previous to that, you had these sort of bouncing, energetic heroines with names like Bundle and what have you, who just sort of zipped through Tuppence in the Tommy and Tuppence books. And then suddenly we had this older woman who had seen everything and had heard of everything. And there was great sort of wisdom. She was stepped back from the world and able to observe it and pronounce. And these 13 stories, none of them are police procedural, and they all involve Miss Marple looking at things and working things out by clues, like seeing the fish in the fishmonger's window, or knowing about hundreds and thousands on a trifle, or that gardeners don't work on Whit Monday. And so she's going right into the heart of these communities and coming out with these, coming out with the solution to these crimes and these murders. So has to, though, as I say, I could have chosen any number of Agatha Christie's, but it had to be this.
Good choice. That is 3 amazing choices. Go and check them out. You can pick them up in any bookshop. You can pick them up online. Go and check them out now. So, brilliant. So thank you to J.M Hall for coming on the podcast this week. Where can people find you if you'd like to be found?
Where will people find me? Oh, I am on Instagram, and I say it a bit like my mother or father would have, because I'm not the best on social media, but I can be found on Instagram, J.M Hall Writer. And so I put posts there. There's a few posts of me in different bookshops holding plates of lemon drizzle cake, but I do try and put my thoughts about writing and also books I've read that I enjoy. And hills I climb in the Lake District.
Okay, brilliant. So go and follow J.M Hall on Instagram, and yeah, go and check out the books. All brilliant. I'm listening to mine over on Audible as well, so go and check them out on Audible. Very, very well read, and very good.
Yeah, I can say that because Julie is just wonderful. She really is.
There you go. So as always, a huge shout out as well to our sponsor, Football Book Club. One second, I'll go grab the book this time because I actually got the books in front of me this time. They are the UK's best thriller and horror book box service, bringing the wonders of a haunted bookshop straight to your door each month. Just had the recent box come through yesterday, which we have got Red River 7 by AJ Ryan. That's one of the latest horror ones that's just coming out through Orbit. We've also got My Throat and Open Grave by Tori Bobolino. That's the one I can't pronounce. Two amazing books, and not what I thought would be in this book box this month. So let's hope Eric the Rockers is in next month. But you also get in the Full Guts box, you get a brand new book, a possibly haunted second-hand book, and another indie title. You also get snacks, UK drinks, and you get bookmarks, you get badges, canvas bags. It's my favourite thing each month. You guys know this by now. I've been touting this every single week and every single month on here and on Bloody Good Screen as well. Go check it out and use the code BloodyGoodReads at checkout to get 10% off your first box. You get 3 amazing books in the post every month. You never know, it's all brand new titles as well, so go and check them out now. Description in below, you know what to do by now. As well as you can find me over on Twitter at BloodyGoodReads, over on Instagram at BloodyGoodReads, and over on Threads at BloodyGoodReads as well. Also go and check out our film podcast as well. That's mostly now over on YouTube. It's Bloody Good Screen Movie Club, where myself, Niall, Marcus, Taz, and now Hunter Shea, author, podcaster, is also joining us now on a regular basis from the looks of it. So go and check us out. We've got the latest episode just popped up. That was Dr. Jekyll, a remake with the Hammer Horrors, and Lovely Dog and Deep. That was us and Hunter, and we've got another one coming out just the four of us at the start of May. So go and check them out as well. As always, a huge thank you for listening to the podcast. We've got more episodes coming up, more lined up after our very long several month break. But do check out some of the most amazing authors that we have on coming up. And I hope you're enjoying the podcast. As always, like, share, subscribe where you can. I've been your host, Mike Goddard, and I'll see you next time.
I've got a little task for you. Oh, for fuck's sake! What have I done? I can sweat myself into the kettle.
Thinks cheese is spicy.
I have printed out some pamphlets.
Joy to the world.
Please stop trying to kill Mother!
It's my wedding day.
Well, let me tell you something, Mother!
What is that?
Your chances of making it to 0 to none when you're dealing with budgeons and dragons.
My name is Hamburger. I have a gun.